Welcome to Tea and Bratwurst.
Welcome. And which tea are you today?
Well, so far I've only had Earl Grey, so I'm a bit boring, but I love Earl Grey. What kind of Bratwurst are you?
Today I'm a Bavarian Bratwurst.
Okay.
Yeah, because I feel very, very energetic, and Bavarians are usually very energetic.
And we love Bavaria.
Yeah.
So we are currently in this wonderful cottage here in Tetbury in the Cotswolds, and we thought we would take this opportunity to get comfy here on this sofa in this gorgeous snug and talk about the fact why we love
Yeah,
cottages.
but why do you love cottages?
I think if I go back to my early 20s, before I've ever been to the UK, so we have Rosamunde Pilcher Filme in Germany. Rosamunde Pilcher, she was Scottish, wasn't she? She was originally from Scotland.
I think so, yeah.
Yes.
But she wrote about Cornwall and the UK and
Yes,
everything.
yes.
Yeah.
And
the Germans and German television discovered her, and they made, I think, films about every story, from every story she wrote.
sometimes I think there's a short story with only 3 or 4 sentences,
Yeah,
and
then-
Germans create a film.
Yeah.
But I think that somehow started my love, not only for cottages, maybe for the UK, because it's this romanticized notion. There's usually someone in a ground house, in a country house, but then you can see cottages. And I thought, that's so romantic.
Yeah. But what is a cottage?
Well, I wrote down, this is a very simple definition. An English cottage is a small, historically practical home built from local materials, never meant to impress, only to serve everyday life.
Yeah.
Which, it's true.
Yeah, so like the worker's cottage, the gardener's cottage, the fisherman's cottage.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think, well, first of all, why do you like cottages?
Because, I mean, usually if it's an old cottage, well, usually cottages are old, they're a part of history, and you can feel the history. Yeah. They have a certain architecture.
What's your, if you had to draw your perfect English cottage, what would it look like?
It would be a stone cottage, with a slate roof or a thatched roof, not big, maybe a door, 2 windows, small garden around it. Yeah.
Fence.
Fence, that's it.
So a cottage that you find on a postcard.
Yes, a picture-perfect cottage.
A chocolate boxy cottage.
Yeah.
Yeah. But do you think we like them so much because we find them so romantic?
It's a kind of maybe a bit nostalgic.
Yeah.
It's a bit of, but I think it's not. For me, it's not nostalgic because it's not all that. I don't think look, that cottage and beautiful old times. I think to me it's just the beauty itself. They have a certain beauty. They have a certain feeling. I mean, like I said to you when we entered this cottage, for example, it was like you came in and the cottage hugged you, and you felt safe here. You felt a coziness or a warmth, and I think that's what it is.
I think, I don't know, I think many people, maybe including me, like cottages because it's like what you have in your daily life.
Yeah.
The world is loud, and the news, and
Yeah.
then you go back or you stay in a cottage, and then it's like the notion of a simpler life that
Yep.
you maybe can't have in your everyday life.
No,
And this is that's probably very romanticized.
it is. It is. Yeah, sure.
I would love to buy a cottage and redecorate it all
Yeah.
as a project.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but what would you do?
I would, well, in my 20s.
Or how would it look?
Ooh,
Your ideal cottage then?
well, like the cottages that, always like the cottages that we show on our channel. It just has to have like a very, like a simple but timeless kitchen, granny chairs with floral patterns, heavy curtains, a wallpaper in some rooms, and just nice, colourful, just colourful.
Okay.
And I would love if funds were endless, I would love to have a cottage redecorated and for the weekend, like to stay there on a weekend and share it with others.
See? That's what I wouldn't like. I mean, it would be nice, but I think if I have to spend that much money, I would travel around and explore other cottages again. Because at some point, probably if you've got that, let's say, weekend home cottage, I mean, maybe at some point it might get boring.
I think. Do you think we get many ideas from staying at cottages for our own home? Because I think we do.
Yes, we do. Surely. I mean, the cottages we've been are very inspiring.
I think, like, because we have this small utility room
Yeah.
and we had this brilliant kitchen designer, Hannah,
Yeah.
and now that we have our washing machine and dryer behind a curtain, I think it's so cottagey somehow.
Yeah, it is.
But sometimes when because we see so many cottages, do you sometimes think, oh, we need to redecorate because I really love this colour, so we should repaint our snug?
No, because I just love our snug. I just love it as it is.
You love to snog in our
No,
snug.
I mean, the only thing is I think, okay, yeah, maybe get a picture there.
You know what I would love?
Or put something, another Staffordshire figurine.
We have this, so we have a lovely Edward Bulmer colour.
Yeah.
I think the name is Pomona. I've always, for a couple of years now, I've been dreaming about Invisible Green from Edward Bulmer.
Yeah.
Which is a stronger shade. We've seen it at Charlotte Gaisford's house.
Yeah.
An interior. She's a textile and fabric designer. And also last year we stayed at a very small cottage and we had tea at in the owner's kitchen. And in the hallway they had Invisible Green.
Yeah.
Do you think it would look nice?
I'm not sure. Maybe it's too bold.
I wouldn't say bold, maybe it's too dark.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's why. I love our snug as it is at the moment. I just love it. Maybe in 5 years' time I want a different colour.
Sometimes I think where we definitely get lots of ideas from stays.
You do.
And
because in cottages you need to be let's say, inventive.
yeah.
Because not everything is as in a normal house. So you need to make the best out of small space. And that just makes you creative and inventive.
Do you think British people are more courageous when it comes to colour compared to Germans, for example?
I don't know because I don't know the average. house. Yeah, we just stay in houses which are colorful, like this one.
So,
We just choose.
well,
I think, in average, the average are not that colorful as we believe they are.
exactly,
Maybe, yeah, they are more colorful as the Germans, but I think not everybody would decorate his house like this one. Like
So,
here. No.
we had a cottage. We rented a cottage in North Wales
Yeah,
before we bought our place.
yeah,
And so it was a lovely cottage from the outside. I didn't like the inside whatsoever.
yeah.
And that wasn't like this. It wasn't colourful.
No.
It was white.
Exactly.
I didn't like
The
it.
kitchen was creamy, creamy
Yeah, and
white
glossy.
and glossy. So, yeah,
That's what I figure is probably the normal cottage.
yeah, maybe. Because, I mean, it's difficult because to use colors, you need to have some courage. Because and imagination. Because you need to find out how colors work together, which colors work together, and sometimes you fail. I mean, I remember when we wanted to do our attic room, to find the color was something. It wasn't like,
Yeah.
okay, we did not go into a shop and say, look, okay, this is the color.
I mean, we had a mishap with the samples, but
Yeah.
apart from that, that's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
And I mean, most people fear that kind of failure, or don't, let's say, have that kind of imagination. They want to do the safe route. So the safe route is probably, okay, I choose kind of color, but it's magnolia. So it's not plain white, but it's not bold.
Or so when we went to Charlotte, Gaisford,
Yeah.
remember, I absolutely detest feature walls. I can't
Yeah.
stand them because I was so relieved when Charlotte said, don't do, she said the same. She hates feature walls, and she said, either do the entire room, wallpaper the entire room, or no,
Yeah.
or nothing, all or nothing. And I feel the same.
Yes, but it's also a thing, which we never should forget, is it's also about budget.
Yes,
I mean, wallpapers and certain colors are expensive.
And fabrics.
And fabric.
Yes.
So not everybody, let's say, has the money to
No.
spend £80 on a roll of wallpaper.
And that's like if you go for example, this year, I haven't checked, but probably £80 would be cheap. You can, like, some rolls cost £250.
So you always have to think about, okay, not everybody has a big budget. And that's why you probably sometimes tend to, okay, I don't use that wallpaper because it's too expensive, so I might use a different, that kind of color.
And then I would always go for colour.
Yeah.
Just a paint. I mean, a paint. Yeah.
Because sometimes you have to stick into to a certain budget. And
Of
that's
course.
when you use, let's say, the average things, because they're not that pricey. Yeah.
So, well, we actually covered that, I think. What makes a room cosy? For me, it's wallpaper and colour.
Yeah, it is.
And
Warm colours.
And it doesn't have to be a huge room. I think the opposite. It maybe a smaller room is more cosy with colour and wallpaper.
Yeah.
And you never, I think you shouldn't think that although a room might be small, you can't have wallpaper in there. You can.
You can. You surely can.
Yes.
Now look, this room is not that big.
No.
And you've got a very bold wallpaper.
I really love
Yeah.
it.
And it's just nice because, and then you combine it with a color like the red.
I love that.
And it's just, wow.
It's so nice.
It just gives you a warm feeling.
Yes.
Even on a dark day like today.
And I just love this. To me is so quirky.
Yeah. That's inventive.
I've never So I've seen that in many books and English interior magazines. I've never seen that in Germany.
The cottage we're in, that row, could be here in 50 years, or will be here in 50 years' time,
Yes.
or in 100 years' time,
Yes.
and still everybody would love it.
Well, this cottage is from the late 17th century.
Yes, yeah.
There you go.
I mean, that's the thing. It's timeless. It's a timeless beauty.
What do you think people outside the UK, when they think about the UK,
Yeah.
do you think a cottage comes to mind? Like first thing that they
Yeah, I think a lot of people, if they think about the UK,
yeah,
they think about these old cottages. Okay, they think about the grand houses,
yeah,
gardens, nice
Yeah.
gardens, parks, old churches, old villages with
Yes.
cottages.
Yes.
I mean, that's what people think about the UK. I mean, the average cottage is probably small, dark, damp. Yeah.
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 So, well, the thing is, like, it's so funny. Remember when we had this flat in Korschenbruch near
Yeah.
Düsseldorf?
Yeah.
That flat had high ceilings.
Yeah.
And then when I was going to say moved to Germany, then when we moved back to Saarland and we built the house, I said, I can't deal with low ceilings. They need to be higher because
Yeah.
I love high ceilings.
Yeah.
And cottages never have high ceilings, but I love them too.
Yes, but that's just a combination. If it's an old cottage, you've got that, and you have that certain feeling of warmth, of lived in, of, yeah, it embraces you. Yeah.
And also, so we're German.
Yeah.
And Germans, I think it's just we changed a lot since having moved here. A cottage is not perfect.
No.
Like angle-wise, the windows, it's crooked floors.
Yeah.
For some strange reason, it has to be crooked because otherwise it's not.
Yeah.
There's no character.
Yeah.
But Germans, they always. Like, for example, my older sister, she could never deal with a cottage. I know that. She would hate it.
No, because she probably would, she needs, first of all, space, bigger
Yes.
rooms,
Yes.
and then,
Yes.
easier to clean and everything.
Do you think your attitude towards perfection has changed since moving to the UK?
No, because I never was in that kind, wanted to have perfection. To me, it was, when we had our house in Germany, was about beauty, about colors, about a warm feeling when you get into a house, about a different sense. It wasn't about, okay, yeah, that needs to be white because then it looks clean and it's nice. I think we were always more colorful, and it's maybe also, I think, at least I'm interested in history.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're drawn into history, you maybe also get drawn into the styles of different times.
I think probably people here who own cottages probably love antiques.
Yeah. I think if you want to live in a cottage, you need to be a certain person.
Yeah.
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 Because I think cottages are not made for everybody.
No.
Because you've got, they're smaller, you don't have that much space, they're not, and you sometimes don't have square rooms. Yeah, your kitchen is smaller. In the wintertime, they're cold. And you could have damp spots in your house, on the cottage. And you've got narrow staircases sometimes.
Yes. Yes.
Attic rooms which are dark. I think not everybody loves that. And it's not made for everybody. And also, I think it's in a time where we want to have it big, and everybody wants to possess a lot of things also. If you've got a small house, you can't buy a lot of stuff. you can't fill it with a lot of stuff because otherwise it's cramped. So I think it's also brings you down to minimalize more.
To think about
Yes.
what you buy.
Do I need things?
So, when our house in Germany had 126 square meters,
Yeah.
and what we have now, the Victorian Terrace, has 126. Basically, the very
It's
same.
similar, yes.
But people in Germany, many people say, why didn't you build a bigger house? Apart from,
Yeah, but that's everywhere. People think.
But many people in Germany, at least back in the day, they built huge houses.
Yeah, but I think it's today because everybody dreams of having a big house.
I dreamt of a very big house as a child.
Yes, but everybody, I think a lot of people think about, okay, I want to have a big house, a big car, because that shows that I've achieved something in life.
Did you dream of having a big house as a boy or a young man?
No, never.
Never?
Never,
because I always dreamt. Now, it just comes to my mind, when I was a child, or a girl, I dreamt of having like a big house and a very long driveway, huge garden.
No, I never, because I never could imagine
why.
myself having a house. Don't know why. And it wasn't, to me personally, it wasn't that important. And even now, it's not important to have a big house. Because
No, it's not about that, is it?
Yeah, because big house might be nice and you feel spacious, but how much space do you need?
Yeah. We love spending time in our kitchen. And last time when my dad visited, we spent time in the snug, for example, and watched TV.
Yeah.
And we have a tiny snug, but he said, you know what? You don't need more.
No.
He said, you can heat it very easily. It won't cost you like a fortune to heat it.
Yeah.
Which nowadays is important. I think.
And if you think about how much time do you spend how much time do you spend in certain rooms? I mean, you work from home, so probably you spend 8 hours a day in the kitchen. Yeah.
Yes, at least. Yeah.
I mean, you could, if you want to, have your office space in our dining room. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you choose our kitchen. Why?
I've always loved being in the kitchen. It's close to the kettle.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I love being in the kitchen.
So if you think about it, really, I mean, if you've got a big house, how often would you use certain rooms?
And you know what? Do you remember in our family, it's not a relative, but she passed away, she had a huge house, and she had I've never been in there, a big living room, and no one was allowed in there.
Yeah, but you never used it.
Yes.
It was a showroom.
I could not.
No, I think it's because it's maybe you get told you need, if you want to show that you're successful, that you've done something in life, that you've achieved something, have a big house, have a big car, to just show people something. But that's one part. That's one thing you can do.
We always grew up as children. You probably the same in your family. We have the saying, Platz ist in der kleinsten Hütte.
Yeah, but that's...
How would we translate that?
There's space in the tiniest room.
And I remember, do you remember our very lovely relatives in the north of Germany?
Yeah.
They've always lived in a very small flat, or I would almost call it cottage, like a terraced cottage. It was maybe 55 square meters.
Yeah, okay, that was small.
They had 2 children in there.
Yes, that was small, and I guess it was hard because now we think, we don't need to romanticize that. It's tough living in that small things. But I think that's why I said you need to be, if you want to live in a cottage, you need to be a certain person.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because it's, yeah, when you stay there on a weekend, it's romantic. It's nice. Yeah, because you know at the weekend, you know on a Monday morning you drive back to your house. Yeah, where everything's fine, everything's bigger. It's warm. It's everything's better there. Yeah.
Well, I think that's probably the same though. Like if you spend a holiday somewhere, everything is nice.
Yeah.
You know.
Maybe that's why people love holiday cottages.
But like coming back to this cottage here, which is lovely.
Yeah.
It's not. What do you think? How many square meters do you think this has? I think 70.
Yeah, 70, 80 square meters. Yeah.
It's not too small.
But it's big enough.
But could you live here permanently?
Yes, I could. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why? It's got enough. It's got a big kitchen. The kitchen is big enough. Yeah, you've got a living room downstairs where you could sit.
That's big.
And read.
Which is big.
Here, that room is nice. Yeah.
I love this room.
So the attic with a bedroom is big.
I love this room. This is the snug, and to me, it has such a library feeling. I love that.
And you've got a terrace, a small terrace outside. Or small, it's
A patio,
good
yes.
sized.
Yes.
And so you don't need more.
We've stayed in many cottages, and some of them were quite spacious, actually.
Yeah.
Do you remember Gracie's?
Yes.
Not Gracie's, no, the other one in Shropshire. What was the name? It was pink from the outside, and it was so nice. Charlotte's Folly.
Yes. See, it wasn't called cottage.
I love that cottage. That was big.
The question is, is it a cottage? Because that's where you could argue. What is a cottage? And if it's bigger, is it a cottage?
Yes.
Yeah, people sometimes argue. I mean, when we've showed cottages and people told us this is not a cottage because it's too big.
No, that was just at one point when we stayed in Norfolk at a gatehouse.
Yeah.
And in the title, I remember, it was called Gatehouse, but the owners who owned Walterton Hall.
Yeah, called it cottage.
Because they have this huge country house, and they called it cottage.
Yeah.
And then I looked it up. So obviously it was a gatehouse, yes.
Yeah.
But I think because the owners had this huge country estate, and on the estate there are cottages for them.
Yeah.
They are cottages, they call them cottages, but regular people wouldn't call them cottages.
No, because a cottage isn't big. It's usually not big.
But do you remember
house.
when we stayed on the Chatsworth estate?
Yeah.
Gardener's Cottage, where we said it had like Jane Austen vibes, and actually the Duchess, what's the name? Duchess of Devonshire, I think. She wanted to create a cottage with Jane Austen vibes, and we said we could move it. We could move in there right away.
But that was to me borderline cottage, because reality it wasn't big. I mean, they put an annex on it so that the kitchen was big, but then you had a dining room, a living room, and 2 bedrooms upstairs, and
a bed. There was another bedroom downstairs.
Yeah, but
it had 3 bedrooms, and it had upstairs a huge bathroom. And
so that wasn't a cottage. No.
But I could have lived there easily.
No, because it had that special feeling.
So you could live here on a permanent basis.
I could.
Where what I love about this place, the inside to me is absolutely a cottage.
Yeah.
But this is not your the cottage that you would draw, because this is like we are in a row of cottages. But what I absolutely love here is that we are in a lane where there are no cars, and you walk into Tetbury, is it a town, or I think it's just a village?
I think, it's a village, and it's just 2 minutes into a village now.
I love that.
Yes.
Is there something you hate about cottages? You really you don't like about cottages?
As I said, they can be cold, they can be damp, they can be dark. Yeah? Sometimes.
Which probably could be a struggle in wintertime.
Yeah.
If you are in a cottage, most of them have tiny windows.
Yeah.
Or not many windows. And on a dark, like in the dark season, could be a struggle.
And I mean, you've seen it. Sometimes we stayed in a cottage, and in the evening, when you turn off the heat, it gets cold. Especially in winter times, it gets cold. Because they're old buildings, they are not insulated that good, and they just lose the heat. Because also you've got the main door doesn't fit 100%, and it's an old door, so you've got draft everywhere.
But I think the people here are they're probably far more used to it.
Yeah.
They just keep the character and get inventive by using. I've never, like 30 years ago, I wasn't that aware why they use these heavy curtains, but it makes sense. You're not allowed, depending on whether it's a listed house, so where you're not allowed to change anything. What do you do?
This is single glazed.
Yes.
In winter, it's cold.
Yes. So what do you do? Use
a curtain.
But sometimes I would struggle, like when I think about the cottage where we stayed with my sister and brother-in-law last year.
Yeah.
The entrance door, sometimes they have entrance doors that are hundreds of years old, so still the original.
Yeah.
And it had, how do you say, Spalten.
Yeah, I don't know English term now.
Not cracks. It was like, I don't know. Let's just say, you could say, hello spiders, you're welcome anytime. Yeah. They had, like most of the cottages here have, because when you open the front door, you step into the living room straight away.
It's not a big house, so you don't have a hallway.
No, there's no hallway, which can be tricky because you get all the dirt in there.
Yes. So you
need to take off your shoes.
But that's the price you pay.
On the other hand, sometimes I feel people here are far more relaxed in that respect, that they cope with it. In Germany, people wouldn't cope with it.
I don't know, but maybe because but that's probably because we like to have it modern. We like to have it straight walls. Everything's fine. Everything's perfect and fixed and looks good.
I always thought so. When I went to Germany last September and went to the Black Forest with my dad, I tried to find where there are lots of old houses, farmhouses. So I went online and thought maybe I can find a lovely, like the equivalent to an English cottage in Germany. I couldn't. I just couldn't.
Because you only find them in museums.
The thing is, they have such lovely old farmhouses. But when I went online, the only thing, like the inside was modern or from the 80s or 90s.
Yeah.
I thought, why can't I find that? It would be so nice. They sometimes ruin the character, the inside.
But that's because we modernize them. We want to have a good upkeep. So we do everything. And if, let's say, the walls aren't straight, we make them straight.
Yeah. But then again, like, I'm sure at one point I would love to find a very nice cottage in Bavaria to share on our channel, maybe. Like inside, I think that must exist.
Maybe.
Do you think will we have a cottage one day, or maybe a project?
Our house is a mixture between a Victorian house, a cottage, and everything else.
Our house does have cottage vibes, doesn't it?
It does.
I think we could talk about cottages for ages.
Yes.
And we still have, I'm sure, well, I always look on the web what to find, where to stay.
There are plenty of cottages we can discover. And I know we will do that.
In case you have any tips where to stay,
tell us.
Tell us.
Yeah.
we're happy to explore them.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
So we hope you like listening.
Yeah.
We have to leave today, so we need to pack now.
Yeah.
But that place is gorgeous. I'd love to have this library
A
feeling.
beautiful cottage.
So, yeah, thank you for listening, and until next time.
Bye.
Tschüss.
Bye bye.
Tschüss.